We're going to talk RTX Day today. We're going to talk some numbers. I posted a thing on Twitter kind of breaking down the numbers. We're going to go through that real quick. I'm going to take this. I'm going to post it to YouTube right after it. And you guys can rewatch it. So if you're joining late, it's okay. It's going to be on YouTube. So let's talk RTX. Let's talk the new announcement from nVidia. Today I went and hosted talk through some of Jensen's conversation about the 280 Ti and 280 overclock edition that's going to be coming out here September 20th. So facts that we know: September 20th release date. You can pre-order them now. They are on nvidia.com. It looked like it was up on PNY's website. The XLRX 8 was out there too. Looks like about $1,000 for the 2080 Ti. The Founders Edition looks like it's a little overclocked and is about $200 more, I guess, for the premium of having a Founders Edition. But $1,200 is pretty steep for a flagship card. But we're gonna go in and really quickly. I only have about 40 minutes here, so I'm going to try to get through this pretty quick. And we are going to look at what I put out on Twitter. I'll look through some of the details real quick. So let's go through the image here. So if you guys are joining late, it's not a big deal. So some of the details. This is pretty small, but we'll go ahead and blow it up a little bit, and then we'll move it over. So let me bring this up a little, move this over, and then we'll come and look at that other part. Yeah, price. I did not put price on this, just because that just right now at this point, I want to see what the non-reference versions end up going for. It looks like about $1,250 to $1,300. But bottom line, here's the kind of detail. Let me expand this a little more, and then we'll get to the charts that I built. I mean, this was kind of thrown together pretty quick today, just trying to get one-stop shop information here. So the RTX, it's the new branding, versus GTX, because now we're getting into the ray tracing stuff. The core counts, the CUDA core counts, what I was trying to look at here in relation to like the nVidia Titan. So I know we know what the Titan puts out performance-wise, and the question for me was, how was that in relation to the already released, architecture, this microarchitecture that this card more than likely is partially based off of, which was under the Titan V that came out in December. And what we can tell is the cores, the NVIDIA cores, based on NVIDIA putting out the information today, 4352 CUDA cores, 2944 on the 280, and then NVIDIA Titan V 5120. So it still reigns higher on the core count, comparable to the 1080 Ti. Obviously, we're looking at almost a 700, 800 core increase, comparable to the new 1080 Ti. So I mean, they are the 2080 Ti. So the whole premise of that presentation today was around the whole concept of the RTX architecture when it came to ray tracing and being able to do dynamic lighting and shadowing and all this new functions and feature sets. But there wasn't a lot of detail as comparison to current AAA titles, current technology, and how it goes up against existing drivers and stuff. And that's really what all of us are really wanting to see, right? I mean, that's fine. There's a new feature set that's out with ray tracing. I have a question outstanding if the new RTX driver set with the Microsoft enhanced DirectX that's going to allow for ray tracing, if that's going to work on backwards compatible down to the GTX 1080s, 1080 Ti's for the folks that are into gaming. That's going to be interesting. And then, or do you have to go up to the RTX to get that kind of advantage? If you look at the bits, when you come into the memory bandwidth, from somebody that getting back onto the miner hat, if you're a miner, and I'm talking cryptocurrency miner, not like a young person, Things that are relevant have to do with I/O speed. If you're talking like Ethash currencies, which would be like Ethereum or Ubik, the 352-bit aligns right up with the 352-bit of the 1080 Ti. So they didn't really increase the lanes per se, and essentially kept it exactly the same as the previous. Now the NVIDIA Titan, you can see some of the huge advantage it gains with the HBM2 memory bandwidth and the bus of 3072-bit versus the, it's a 10x memory bandwidth architecture at a much slower speed though. So the speeds of the memory here are going to be significantly faster. So it's like faster speeds on a highway versus a lot slower speeds on a highway, just a lot more lanes on the 1080 or on the NVIDIA Titan V. The HBM2 memory on the Titan V is a lot slower megahertz wise than what's going to be on that GDDR6. And this is really what it comes down to. I cannot wait to test GDDR6 on some of these algorithms and see what they can actually put out. I wouldn't be trying to sell your 1080 Ti's right away. I mean, until some numbers really come out. These are just the kind of the specs of the car. It's kind of like learning that a car has a lot of horsepower, but then really figuring out that it can't put the power to the wheels, and you're just sitting there spinning them. I look at that in a lot of the context. Until we can get real drivers, real FPS results, we'll get to see, if it's all, worth it. So if we zoom out here a little bit, I'm going to bring this out just a little bit more. And I try to put in a couple other details that people will probably be asking, which is like the Vega64 and the RX580. How do those compare, from just a core count, speed, and hash rates? So this one chart, this is actually on Twitter. I tweeted this earlier on Twitter on Bitsby Trippin' to kind of give everybody an explanation of what it is. But bottom line, you can see the core count differences. The Vega64 has about 4,096 core count. And now it's not CUDA Cores, so this is kind of misleading. There is no CUDA Cores on the AMD Vega64 or RX580. Those are just separate ROM cores, are not ROM cores. They're just the cores that are part of AMD and not CUDA Cores. But it is a core count that can handle individually parallelism of a task. So what are the total core count collectively? And you can kind of get an idea with the core and boost clock speeds of, how effective is that graphics card going to be with, the megahertz that are there. Again, the Vega64 having a 2048-bit memory interface, and that has to do with the HBM. HBM is takes a different memory architecture than GDDR5 and 6, and has a lot of lanes at a lot less speed. So you can see the memory clocks on some of these other graphics cards being 1300, 2000 megahertz on the 1070 Ti, but being 945 megahertz on the HBM2 card, and 850 respectively for the Titan V, 850 megahertz, but having a huge memory bus lane. Again, lots of highways, slow speed versus having less highways and a much faster speed. It all comes down to what's your gigabit, and that comes out when you do the math right here on this memory bandwidth. And this is really from a cryptocurrency standpoint, especially in memory-intensive applications. The memory bandwidth here matters for the input-output calculations. So you can see the new 2080 Ti is putting out 616 gigabit per second memory bandwidth, with the 2080 coming in at 448. That in relation to the Titan V, 652. So the Titan V still a little hot, has an advantage on the memory bandwidth. Again, these are numbers that NVIDIA did not want to discuss on their meeting for whatever reason. I would have just assumed, just to say, hey, we announced something in December, and oh, by the way, this other thing is not as many core count, not as much memory bandwidth, and we don't want to talk about it. So they kept referring to the Titan X and the Pascal, mainly because people can buy Titan X for gaming purposes. They had a few different cells with those over December also, and try to keep the Titan X as like a king of gaming graphics card at the pinnacle, but did not try to sell the Titan V as that, being at the $3,000 price point. The Titan V is a weird thing because they came out with the Tesla V100s. They came out with the Quattros. They have the renders on every, you know, on this other architecture. The Titan V still has not made any sense to me of what the point of the Titan V, short of the Tensor Core piece of it. But the people that are in that market to write software for Tensor Cores are going to be going with the V100s and some of the DGX, you know, setups, you know, renting out Amazon cloud services for Tensor Core processing and stuff. I'm still kind of trying to figure out what the point of the Titan V market is, short of just the few of us that bought them and technically still have, you know, the fastest graphics card on the planet when it comes to the task. Until we see what the performance of the 2080s are, I'm really interested to see if it can edge out the Titan V. An overclocked Titan V still trumps everything out there in gaming. Even though it's not designed to do that, it just does purely by brute force. So, but at a very high cost point. I'm not trying to sell in the fact that people want to go with a Titan V. On the contrary, it'd be much faster for you to go with a pair of 1080 Ti's and Crossfire on some games than even a single Titan V. So, apples to apples, not a general comparison there. But, you know, I'm trying to make this available and quick, and then just brought up the kind of charts because people like charts of kind of where does those sit from a bit. The things that we care about, you know, core count, bit width, when you come into I/O operations, and then kind of how does that look on current high, you know, top speed mega hash out there. Obviously, both of those are setting at 0 until we get our hands on them. But the Titan V still reigns champion on there at 82 mega hash on ETH without the ETH pill. An ETH pill enhancement on a Titan V theoretically should push that close to 100 megahertz or 100 mega hash if it had an overclock on it. So just looking at the enhancements that come from the 1080 Ti's from the ETH enlargement pill, taking it from 37 to 54, and looking at the changes. HBM is already pretty optimized, so any enhancements on HBM too that could be done, it would probably keep it still just underneath 100 mega hash, but it's at 82 mega hash right now without any ETH pill. And then, you know, ETH pill, these are ETH pill numbers for the 1080 Ti and the 1080 GTXs, which is just a secondary program that does a memory intercept on memory timings when it's processing an Ethereum chain. Essentially, when it's going through its proof of work, it's adjusting the memory timings to be in line with a more optimized implementation of that overhead, and thereby increases the amount of hash output for those particular two cards. That actually is unlocked if you're one of the folks that had purchased it and have that NDA with OGATA company. That actually goes across all the NVIDIA line, but OGATA company did release it to everybody on the 1080 Ti and the 1080s. So the 1080 or the 1070 Ti is sitting at 35, and then of course the Vega64 at 42 mega hash, and RX580's max potential being around 30 to 31 mega hash. Still kind of gives you that grounds. If I was going to make a prediction on this today, and we could put it in writing, and I'm going to put that out in on Twitter, that I'm going to predict that without the ETH pill enhancement, before any of that happens, the 2080s, based on just what I'm seeing right now, and then the few leaked, if they're correct, speeds on the core and the memory for the 2080 and the 2080 Ti, I'm going to put those numbers probably around the mid 50s to high 60s, mega hash equivalent on the 1080 or the 2080 Ti's, and then mid 50s on the 2080. And that's not knowing the real, true, actual data performance on GDDR6. Just the raw numbers, looking at the lower megahertz of core and the memory speed in comparison to the current architecture, and looking at the amount of core count that's out there, and just looking at the architecture there. As you know, cryptocurrency is not going to take advantage of ray tracing. So unless somebody can encode a separate sub-process that takes advantage of the tensor cores or the ray tracing cores, just raw straight performance, we're probably looking at around a 60 to 65 mega hash on the 2080 Ti's, and then 50s on the 2080. Anything on wattage used? You know, they do post the TDP being at 285, but I've seen also some reports of 250. If it's at 285, that does kind of have me concerned, because it's kind of the opposite way the Volta architecture went with the Titan V, where the Titan V, if we drop down, it was power hungry. To get 82 mega hash, you got to feed it juice. So the Titan V does not hit its 82 mega hash unless you're pumping up the power on it. When we were overclocking it and we were dropping the power limit down to 70, it actually only dropped it from 66 mega hash to about 72 mega hash. We did, for an extra 10 mega hash, I had to just feed it power. Kept the clocks the same, added power, and then it bursted up to 82 mega hash. But that brought the power up to about 220. But you can run, like if I'm running my Titan V and I'm mining Ethereum or Ubik, I keep it at about 77 mega hash, and I'm running at 70% power, and I overclock as max I can handle on the memory, right on almost 1,000 megahertz. So, yeah, the speculation on the mega hash that I'm putting at it right now is about no more than 65 on the 280 Ti based on the specs that I'm seeing now. Abstaining from the fact that there could be an advantage on the I/O interface with the GDDR6, since none of us have seen what GDDR6 true output is, short of what the theoretical calculations are based on what's being provided on the bit count and the maximum bit bandwidth gigabit per second of 616 versus the Titan V's 652. And the Titan V is going to have, right now, it looks like an advantage on the bandwidth, just purely from the huge 3072 bit lane. But I mean, it comes down to it, if it can hold that 65 at like 150 watts TDP, that would give it a pretty large advantage, because you'd be about 70 watts less than a 1080 Ti at about 25% increase in hash. Yeah, T-Bates, the info on the watts right now, no, it's just the TDP is 285. So buy up the used 1080 Ti's. Well, right now, I mean, until we get one in hand, I mean, these are all obviously speculation numbers, but now we at least have real data from nVidia of what the details are, which are the core count, and then the memory band. The number one number I really cared about was the memory bandwidth output, because that was really indicative of what the real true potential of the card would be from at least cryptocurrency side standpoint. Is, you know, is the bus width high and is the memory speed fast, which we've seen some leaked numbers. I think PNY accidentally leaked the actual clock speeds, and the core and the memory were a lot lower than what people were anticipating. Where it was like 1350 on the core and it was like 1500 on the memory speed. Where, like, if you look at the 1070 Ti, we're at 1683 and 2002 megahertz on the memory. So if we're a 500 megahertz drop in the memory speed, and essentially the bandwidth is the same, you know, on the 2080, you know, the gigabit per second is kind of showing still in line. You know, 448 versus 256 is a pretty sizable increase on the actual gigabit per second. So you're seeing the advantage here, where you're going to be slower here. Your memory width is the same, 256 versus 256 on the 1070, and I'm looking at the 2080 here. But if they're reporting that even with that bandwidth size, think of it like lanes, you're still getting out a 448 gigabit per second out of that versus the 256. It's almost double. So that's showing you kind of the DDR6 and its advantages. And if that's where it's at, I mean, we're looking at the 2080 potentially performing as much as the 1080 Ti when it comes to just raw straight compute performance on the cryptocurrency side. Now, that's not going to be a one-for-one indicative change on like gaming, because a lot of the gaming stuff have to do with, you know, what kind of instruction sets are on the chip, and what features do you have turned on the card itself. Like the ray tracing, they're talking all this cool ray tracing stuff. That's great. I want to see RTX on and off, and I want to see the impact that it has on games that are enabling for RTX. So if, like, let's say you're playing Tomb Raider and you're rocking in at 75, 80 frames a second with RTX on, but you turn it off and you shoot up to like almost 200 frames per second, or let's say even at 150. Well, if you have a 144 hertz 1440p monitor, that's going to matter to you, right? Because you don't want to drop, down to like 60 frames per second, and have this really pretty, scene if you can't maintain, a high level of FPS performance on that real expensive monitor that you just bought. So I'm real interested from the gaming side to see, can VSync and our G-Sync and the 4K gaming still produce 140 frame per second, outputs. I'm scared that right now with the current development, it probably doesn't, and that's why they weren't beating their chest on it. If they were to come out and they were to say, hey, here's this new 2080 Ti, and you can play a AAA title right now at 144 hertz, full 4K, they'd be all over. They'd be all over the charts. They'd be just, slam dunking it in that presentation. But what they came out is what we saw in that presentation was a presentation where Jensen was just talking about a new feature, RTX, and that real-time ray tracing, and actually went into a dissertation on how ray tracing worked for the first like 40 minutes of it. And it's like, well, cool, cool story, new tech, awesome, new feature, but like, how does it perform on current AAA titles? How does it perform in the space that people are buying GPUs? Is it a 20, 40%? I mean, he's never going to come out and talk cryptocurrency, but he may come out and say, hey, raw compute performance, we're up 40%. Like if you had the same task, using the same drivers, using the same, OS backend, DirectX 12 performance, that kind of stuff. There was really none of that. It was more of just talking about the cool new feature set, and then here's the specs and here's the cost. So yeah, there's still a lot to be uncovered on the 2080. This is something that the whole space has been looking for a while. Is what's the new architecture? What's it look like? We thought some insight with the Titan V here, but as we're looking into, what's the next step, from them, it really comes down to, what is their AAA title performance, and, what's the power draw? Why would you want to spend $1,200 on a 2080 Ti or buy a discounted version of a 1080? Ti, which is going to do 99% of all gaming tasks that is out there right now. Like, there isn't a task out there unless you're really trying to turn everything up on 4K, and you will kind of thread out and get down to about 30, 40 frames per second on a 1080 Ti, and even sub 30 sometimes on high graphical scenes. My Titan V, I have never seen drop below 38 frames in anything I've ever done in 4K. So, but that's a $3,000 graphics card, and nobody's going to buy that, right? So, can you take this architecture and move it over to the 2080 and make it and sell a lot of units for people? I can sit here and speculate all day on price of what they should do, and we're $1,200. I mean, so their flagship, when it first came out last time, their flagship came out at $799 last. The 1080 Ti came out at $799, and the super premium versions were like $829, right? Like, I'm talking Amped Extreme Edition, Zotac, that kind of stuff. This is at $1,200. I mean, this is like Titan XP level of cost. So what's the new Titan gonna cost? Is Titan RTX, is that the next thing? And if is that gonna be $2,000? I mean, that better outperform the Titan V, right? So I don't know. I'm not real happy with the price. I don't think anybody would be really happy with the price. And it's not even for crypto. I mean, like, from the perspective of like gamers and everybody else, like, that's a $1,200 price point is like a price of an entire PC, right? Like, you can build a pretty decent PC right now for $1,200. like a well-made, good processor, good amount of memory, and memory is expensive. Decent sized solid state drive for $1,200. So the Titan ray tracing, yeah, there you go. What's up, the gamer dog? Hey, thanks Iger and Blocks for that subscribe, buddy, for that Twitch Prime subscribe. So I'm gonna open up some questions for you guys. If you guys have any questions, it's 6:22 right now, my time. I have to run out at 6:45, and then I'll be probably doing some streaming later tonight. It's probably gonna be a gaming stream. I gotta finish up a real long stream that I did last night. Some PvP on Empyrean, and I want to do like a game stream tonight. But I got a couple builds here right now that I'm trying to put get ready for the multi-miner test on a couple different NVIDIA and AMD rigs, and let you guys, we'll walk through a full build test of a couple rigs using the new multi-miner and full end-to-end, like all the different options in the multi-miner. Some people have been asking for a video like that. So I'm just kind of getting them prepped right now. Fresh build, letting it install drivers, all that kind of fun stuff. Let's take some of these questions. Why do you think they would not use HBM2 for 2080? The reason why they're not using HBM2 is a lot of people invested a lot of money. Not just, I think NVIDIA was Samsung too, invested into GDDR6 being the next, phase of what all the GPUs in general are going to use. AMD is going to use GDDR6. The HBM2 is very expensive, from my understanding, to manufacture. And if you get into the multi-layered versions of HBM2, like 2 and 3 layer HBM2, like the Titan V has, it's super expensive to manufacture. So makes sense on GDDR6. It just matters, can you juice it up to the clocks that are going to be required for overclocking and stuff. I mean, Jensen said that this card had a lot of overhead on overclocking. There is a little bit of overclocking on the Titan V, but not very much. I mean, the thing goes south quick. How about the Acorn with the 2080 Ti? I mean, it's a good question. I want to see an Acorn in working first on anything, and then we can talk and speculate on the 2080. We ordered 4 of them plus the adapter card or the expansion card. So when we get those, we'll be doing a test on that. Sean's telling me the GoPro tripod should be put on the floor and brought up to a direction in line with the meter, so it's, instead of looking down, hard to see. Yeah, you can't see it in that mini. Well, I think the GoPro is great for the wide angles. And it looks fine here. Like right now you can see it kind of with a reflection. But I think I'm going to change out and not be using a GoPro there. Because, I mean, the GoPro is like great. Like the wide angle is crazy on it. But it's not good for the real close-up stuff. I'll probably be using the... I have a small little Canon camera that's gives me a lot closer image there. So we'll go back to that. I've never known the technicals of the memory. What will be your game of choice testing the 1080 Ti when you get one? Well, I'm going to do a full gamut test. We'll do it online. So, I mean, we'll do a live test. Obviously, we do the synthetic test, which are going to be like the 3D Mark test and stuff. People want to see that. But I think good titles would be all the main AAA titles. So, my son has like all the main games, like Tomb Raider and... I mean, pretty Metro, the things that they were showing, but there was, we'll probably log into his account and use most of that stuff. I mean, stuff like Fortnite's going to be pointless. I mean, it's like testing WoW. I mean, you could run that on a 1060, but, I want to see something with, it's not just the 2080. So we ordered a 2080 Ti and a 2080, and then I want to try like the Zotac 1080 Ti and the Zotac 1070 Ti all in comparison with that on that same live stream. So, have them in the different builds and boxes. It's not going to be one for one. Like, you want to use the same test bench usually to get the same kind of results. And I have 2 boxes that are Ryzen 7 1800Xs, and then I have 2 boxes that are Ryzen 5 1600Xs, and both of them have the same amount of memory, same amount of hard drive space, and all that kind of stuff. Our same types of hard drives are solid state, so we'll kind of test on both the Ryzen 7 and the Ryzen 5. And then I also have a 7700K that we can test it with on the i7 side. So, and then if people really want to see, we'll do a whole separate stream where I'll put them in my main box, which is the 1950X. And I'm looking at a 2990 the Ryzen 2. I just trying to justify, like right now with crypto the way it is, boys, and you know, we're not bringing tons of revenue in on this thing. So like I'm buying all this stuff. Like this is coming out of my pocket. I don't get any kind of advertising. Nobody sends me anything for that kind of stuff. So like I got to kind of budget it where it makes sense. And I'm going to spend $5,000 plus between GPUs and testing and stuff. So to build another like 2990X right now just doesn't make sense for me. I want to. I was going to, but I started doing the math on it. And just like I have so many PCs. And I ended up spending $5,000 on that rig too. So now I'd be 10 grand into the system. What was that? Paman Hayes, thanks for that subscribe, buddy. We do appreciate that. 2 months in a row. What are your thoughts on the pinout connector for the 22? It looked like it was a pair of, it looked like it was 2 8-pins. With a TDP of 285, they're got to have at least a pair of 8 pins on there. I didn't look at see the actual spec if it was an 8 and a 6, but that's a pretty high requirement. That's a pricey CPU. Yeah, the 2990 is like $1,799 for that CPU. If any awesome subscribers are like crazy, want to have one and want to send it, I'll happily test it and send it right back to you. But yeah, right now I'm not going to be buying one of those for. I'd rather get the 2080 Ti and the 2080 and then the subsequent 2070s and stuff and bring those to you guys. I could buy all of those, well, at least 2 of them, and it'd be the cost of the 2990. So would you guys want to see a 32 core, 64 thread processor, or would you want to see 2 different GPUs? That's kind of where I'm at with it right now. Unless crypto does a real hard bounce back up and real soon, yeah, we're going to be just limiting some of those purchases. The new PCIe meter should be done for soon. Oh, nice, Sean. Yeah, let me know when you get your stuff, buddy. 2 GPUs, Carter. Yeah, I think people are looking at saying it. ROI is looking like it will be most residual for most miners. Yeah, ROIs, man. Like I was putting together a script for a video. I think would be pretty good. Let's time check. Okay, I got 15 minutes. I was putting together a script for a video that I think would be kind of beneficial to let people understand the long-term ROI potential versus the short-term ROI potential in mining. One of them was with, I had Dragon Mint T2 ASIC. I think it's through Hong Miner. I don't know how to say their name, but they were trying to send me one. I didn't notice their message. I saw their message today. They want to send me one. I look at the profitability of it. It looks like it loses about 82 cents a day right now at 1,500 watts for 17 terahash on Bitcoin. And what I was going to do is, when you look at the mathematic growth of the difficulty of Bitcoin at the current rate, the exponential rate that the difficulty is going up, if you were to chart that out going forward at the same curve, that machine would make no more than 0.25 Bitcoin in a year. Okay, a quarter of a Bitcoin. Now the machine I think is like $3,000, $4,000, and so a quarter Bitcoin right now at current price wouldn't be profitable. But it's one of those things, like if you had that machine and you ran it for 3 years, and let's say you made a quarter Bitcoin and then a tenth of a Bitcoin, now you're at 0.35, right? And then the next year, let's say you make 0.05. So now you're at 0.4 of Bitcoin, like not even a half of a Bitcoin. In 3 years, you would end up spending $3,500 for the ASIC, and then you'd end up spending about $50 a month times 36 months. Somebody do the math on that. So you have that total cost, right? Another like $3,000. You're having like almost $6,000 in cost, total cost for 0.4 of a Bitcoin. But the math is the whole time you're negative. The whole time you're never making ROI, right? But then on each of the swings in the market, when there's a big rise in the market, that 0.4 Bitcoin, if Bitcoin goes to $40,000, is 20 grand, right? Almost 20 grand, $18,000. Now that's $6,000, the $3,000 cap cost, the CapEx cost, and then the $3,000 OpEx cost, which is your operational expense of operating it, you know, ended up becoming worth it 3 years down the line. And that's why, like, if you're doing mining like this, you have a CapEx cost on your hardware, right? And that's, you can measure that. It's very easy. That's the spreadsheet warriors to figure out, you know, I want to build a couple rigs. What's it going to cost me? And then the OpEx side is what's my power cost and how long is it going to take me? Most people don't calculate how much time you invest in it. And if you attribute time to that cost to that at whatever billable rate, then you're going to figure out like, holy crap, this isn't worth my time. But it's all relative that if you're just feeding in a cap cost and you're feeding in the OpEx and you're never taking out ROI, you're never taking anything. You're just collecting coins. And those coins later on are worth something. That's the bet that you make. That's the bet that here at BBT Todd, myself, the large farm, that whole thing is we have to take some of it out because the OpEx is so high, right? Because we have to pay for the farm. We have to pay for the lighting. We have to pay for the power in the rigs. So you have to take a portion of it, but the maximization of storing as many coins as possible for as long as possible has always been the kind of risk that we take as a miner, right? If you're just working to sell as quick as you get to try to get back your original core cost, there's a math problem there to figure out if that makes sense. And some people actually sell and then buy other coins with their coins. I mean, there's different strategies, and not any one of them. If anybody tells you that they have the right strategy, I'm going to tell you do your own research and figure out your strategy that you need to do from a mining standpoint. It's kind of long-winded of explaining on the profitability side of mining, but I think it would be a good exercise for me to at least go through with you guys. And I'll take like a Bitcoin ASIC one day, and then I'll take a GP mining rig and explain it over a period of time and just the math that's behind that. The measurable math, not bullshit math, like literal, like this is what it costs you. This is what it costs for the hardware. Very easy to calculate. This is what your operations expense is going to cost you. And then let's map that out. And let's look at the difficulty and how it affects your profitability on that. And what I mean by that is not necessarily how much cash fiat that you're getting, but how many actual coins do you acquire over that much time on a particular network. That all matters. So real talk from BBT. My personal strategy is to mine small coins and pray. I mean, there's a whole other, so there's like the math and the mechanical part, which is what we were just talking about. And then there's a whole other piece of like, do you believe in what the future is of the coin? Do you help try to promote at least the vision of it? Do you have an ability to code and you can contribute? And now you have a staked interest in it, and you also contribute to the currency. I mean, I've always done it just from the mining standpoint, and have not, short of just the code that we've put out for you guys to, on the multi-miner, I have not committed code to commits to particular currencies. I feel there's a weirdly ethical line on that. Like if I'm going to go in and like, let's say I want to go out and review Ravencoin, and then I'm going to start submitting code to that. And then if I'm on here telling you guys, hey, I'm mining Ravencoin, you guys should buy Ravencoin, and I'm also contributing to that, then there's this like weird separation. So I mine the coins that I believe in. I try to support that vision and make sure they have awareness. But ultimately, the people that are contributing into those projects, I'll keep awareness of what they are doing. And then maybe at some point and someday, if time allows, where I'm not trying to just bring awareness and show you guys how to mine, that I can contribute to one of those programs and stuff, then maybe that'll eventually do it. But it's called a crapshoot. I mean, there's different ways to do it, but that's one way to say it, a crapshoot. Making more money than other coins, I don't see the problem, but my ethics never really have been there. Well, I mean, I don't know. When you have a platform, there's a responsibility with that platform. And, you can personally want to try to do certain things, but you also got to kind of figure out, like what is the real ultimate goal here? My ultimate goal has always been to make sure that people understand how to do this functionally, mechanically. And then from whatever strategy they're going to choose, they can adapt that strategy to mine whatever they want to mine. What makes you choose a coin to mine? White paper tech team. A lot of the team, and I look at the code commits. So if they're very transparent on the code that they're committing, that's why I always was backing Ether for so long. I could go out there and read the EIPs, the Ethereum improvement plans, and I could see the commits. I could see the code that they're submitting. I could see the vision that they're trying to push forward. That's why I've always liked Ravencoin since the beginning of it coming out. I can see the progress that's being made. I can see the test net. I can touch it, feel it. I can try it out myself. Ubik, I think, had a very good vision for that kind of stuff. You know, with trying to position an Ethereum world-style computer platform to build smart contracts on, but doing it with a mindset of having, you know, commercial and business side to that. You know, having a more stabilized, you know, layer 1 platform in preparation for layer 2 scaling that can come down the line, but having more of a vision when it comes to business. And it comes down to that gives a product that a business can then partake in, build code for. If they written in Solidity on Ethereum, they could deploy it on Ubik, right? So I like platform related coins. That's why I also was leaning very forward into EOS and trying to understand how EOS worked. Now, different distribution model when it comes to 21 block producers and all that. There's a lot of speculation on the way they're running it. That being said, it's just different, right? I don't have anything against what they're doing. I don't know if that's going to be successful as Ethereum or if, you know, EOS is going to do better. Now, that's not a mining standpoint, and that's where I kind of keep at least one hand out in front of, at some point, you know, from a compute and storage standpoint, that network is going to either have to include the, you know, the mining community or somebody that's going to be serving up storage and compute as applications are built onto the EOS network. So that's really, it's a platform. So the eventuality of having some level of compute and storage and that for an exchange of a token looks like it's an eventuality. That kind of stuff is what I'm talking about. So yeah, platforms, good teams, and not just, you know, vaporware, stuff that I could go out and look at GitHub and try to spin up myself. I could fire up an Ansible script and deploy it to, you know, a Linux stack and then test it myself. That kind of stuff. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap this up. It's in 42 minutes. I wanted to do a quick thing on this. I'm going to take this video and just upload it straight to YouTube so you guys can kind of cut through it. If somebody wants to be a boss and put timestamps in this, include your ETC address. And we'll see who can get out there and do timestamps on it faster, and then I'll shoot you over some ETC for the effort of helping me with timestamps, because I just don't have time for timestamps right now. And we'll take a. It depends what the Summit's asking. What's my favorite distro of Linux? It depends on what I need it for. I like. I mean, if it's just deploying a basic miner or any of that. I used to like Bant, which is a basic miner. Ubuntu is very decent when it comes to pretty much everything. Kali Linux, if I need to check into something. I mean, it just depends. Ubuntu is pretty much the go-to, though. And then if it's enterprise and all that, obviously Red Hat. Latest BBT multi-miner is on bitsbetrippin.io. And it's also on our GitHub address. Sean, we have some 30 amp PDUs on our site, I believe, under the store. That links you to the ones that we use out on Amazon. Cool, guys. Well, check out, I'm going to upload this video up to YouTube in a little bit, and then later on tonight I'll be doing a live stream probably on the gaming side. So when I'm not doing this stuff, and I'm prepping this off to the side, so we'll catch up with this one probably tomorrow. It's going to be a couple different rigs. This is a 13 card 1050 Ti rig, and we will go through this one tomorrow. I don't even know if it's all the way set up. I've been setting it up, but I want to go through the entire multi-miner with an NVIDIA rig and an AMD rig. Let's see if it installed everything. Looks like it installed them all. There's 13 1050 Ti's. I want to see this thing running different algorithms, and then we'll have a AMD rig. We'll see if we have that. So if you You guys can kind of see that it's got a single RM1000X in it. But we'll come back to that one. I'm all over the place here. On tomorrow. So I'm gonna, everything looks like it's been on this one. I got to pull the other rig over, and we're gonna pull and have it ready. So I want to have both of them ready for you guys. So stay tuned. We'll be here for tomorrow for this one, and then tonight, if you guys are just bored and want to watch me like shoot a lot of different people on Empyrean, you guys are more than welcome to come and see me. But tomorrow you'll see it on I'll put a note on the events on Twitch. That way you guys know when this one's going to be, if you guys want to see us go through the multi-miner. I should have BBT Todd in town. He's back in town, and he'll probably be here with me as we test this stuff. So stay tuned. I'm going to send you guys over.